Hi everyone, this is Leanne. This is from the heart. I'm a self-exiled midwife, and I left midwifery because evidence does not line up with policy, and too much so for me to consider it ethical for me to continue working in that environment. If I was to continue working in an environment, I'd be constantly in trouble because my clients would be making decisions for themselves, because that's the way that I believe in practicing and saying the truth, not hiding information from people. There's a lot of manipulation happening in the system. And when we look at what is happening in the system, we're also seeing that adverse outcomes, severe adverse outcomes, are increasing, which means that all the other things that are less severe, more morbidity and things like that, are increasing underneath the water of the iceberg. So there's a lot to be looking at. There's a lot to be questioning. There's a lot to be changing as well, so that we can reverse that, because we live in the high income country of Canada, and there's no reason for it to be increasing here, like at all. We say that we have the tools and the resources and the skills, and it's just not okay to be silent, and it's not okay to turn a blind eye. It's not okay to not change things around. It's not okay to listen to people who are saying that they're losing trust in the system. I think it's actually really healthy to lose trust in the system and to look deeper so that you can inform yourself better before you make any decisions for your body. And as clinicians, we should also be looking at that because it's our job. You're paid for it. So this is going to be an episode on the things that I want to do to reverse the increase that we're still seeing. It's the increase in maternal death rates has spiked in 2022, and it's still increasing incrementally since then. It hasn't decreased, it hasn't even plateaued, and there's no reason for it to be that way. Okay, so these are the things that one person can do. Waiting on a system is not something that's going to reverse anything. Delegating to a system is not going to reverse anything. And then we are therefore not using the skills that we went to school for. We're not using them properly. The first thing that's going to be coming out is my prenatal course on preparing for birth and soon afterwards. I'm not hiding any information. I've decided I am not hiding any more information for clients. I want them to be well informed. There's a lot of nuance when we don't hide information. When truth is out, there's no black and white. And what a woman wants to do with that information is completely up to her, depending on the circumstances that she has. And I am moving away from policy less. They still have access to policy. Most people still want care from the system so they can get more of that policy from their clinicians, but I'm really going to be focusing on evidence so that they have a balance. And I tell them where they can go and find out the policy. So that is where I'm moving. First, it's going to be a foundation of what labor looks like. And then after that, especially in the intervention sections, there's going to be more evidence, which is going to lead to prevention. If we educate our clients to prevent these, interventions, it's going to be helping them a lot. And another thing that's really important to note is that in 2022, when we saw the spike in maternal mortality, there was also a spike in intervention. We talk amongst ourselves that what we look at in our institutions is the rate of C-sections. And yes, the rate of C-section really did increase in 2022. And but also, so I'm not saying that it's just the C-section rates, but it's everything we're doing underneath the iceberg, underneath the water, that is also increasing. So clients have a right to understand what the evidence is for and against, because right now we're only telling the evidence for intervention. And we're not giving them the full spectrum of information. So that's the first thing. It should be coming out soon. I am delaying it because I want it to be perfect. So, okay, so then the next 2 projects I want to do, we'll see what happens first. We saw the most increase in maternal death was in the age group of 20 to 24 because a bit of data came out. We could stop guessing. And so I want to educate young people. I want to call it sex ed because it is like reproductive health is essentially sex ed. And sex ed is not just contraception. That's what we think. That's what we make it out to be, intervention, right? We're pro-intervention. But sex ed is also relating. And these young adults, they're now adults, but they were teenagers during the lockdowns. And the lockdowns have affected all of our brains, and especially the brains that are still developing. And brains develop until the age of early 30s. We owe it to them to unbamboozle the things that the culture is saying to all of us, to look at evidence and then to look at what the culture is saying and saying, look, there's a difference here. It's not about telling people what to do. It's just telling them what is health. So examples of like what I would want my modules to be, obviously relating is one of them. Because we have learned to relate differently after the lockdowns, especially for children. Dating is not a thing, apparently. Approaching a young woman, and being a young man is also not happening for various reasons. All of that. There's still a lot of debate around who should pay on the first date. And it's not even about that, but we're focusing on it. We should talk about it. So it's gonna be about relating, dating. We live in a society where we put everything on the person that we are in intimate relationship with. Quality relating is the most important thing that we can do for our health. There's a ton of evidence behind it. If you think I'm a conspiracy theorist, amazing. I believe in evidence. When we have quality relationships, when we can rely on other people, and when we can go and help people, we have purpose. When we are sick, people come and help us. That does so much for it does so much to have someone come and help. And then when we go and help, that also does a lot of help for the person who's helping. It gives us purpose. Purpose is a really big thing, and we like to focus on eating and reducing our calories or whatever. But let's say if that was the solution to good health, having the purpose to do so will be the first step. Waking up for people really helps in like all the aspects of health. So when it comes to a really good resource to start off with, because I don't want people to wait for my projects to be up in order and perfect, because that's who I am right now. Mark Groves is a fantastic start to relating. So my other modules would be also, of course, contraception, the benefits and the risks. So we have an overall sort of understanding. And when someone wants to change what she's doing, she's in a different relationship, she's not in a relationship, she could do something different, something that we're not telling her. We're really forcing young women and teenagers to be on the pill. We kind of say that's the only thing that they need. Instead of showing them the full spectrum, they know what they want to do with their bodies. They know how high risk their sex is. And so can we give a woman all the tools so she can make the best decisions for her body? Even a 16-year-old who's about to have sex with her partner, her boyfriend, or her girlfriend, has the right to know all of her choices. And that creates safety, letting her decide full spectrum information. And every 16-year-old is different. Every 21-year-old is different as well. Some 16-year-olds need more of that parenting guidance, and some need a little less. They need to, like, they need to know that they can trust their decisions. That's an important aspect of teaching and parenting. Um, and then, so the other thing that I'm not sure which one I'm going to be working on first, but so there's that, the educating young adults. And then the other one is breach. So we live in a world where we lie to one another as clinicians about a vaginal breech births. And yes, we can blame it and continue blaming it on the term breech trial that came out in 2000. It came out in 2000, that's 26 years ago. We can continue giving ourselves excuses, or we can step and move into the truth. The maneuvers and what we tell each other and those emergency skills things that we do every few years, they're very outdated. They're not true. I could relate that. I could compare that to a shoulder dystocia of a cephalic baby versus a shoulder dystocia of a baby that's breech. Those maneuvers are outdated. You can look at the background of obstetrics and why they're outdated, and this will make midwifery students and young midwives, like, so not young in age but young in practice, understand why it feels like the maneuvers that we're being taught don't work, because we have to go and figure out another maneuver when we're doing them. So those need to be that needs to become more transparent. And the other thing is we're just in general, when it comes to vaginal breech, when it comes to breech, just breach and all the options that those women have, we don't tell each other the truth. So first, I'm going to be saying the truth to my clients in my course, and it's going to be a snippet, right? It's not going to be the full information, but then because they're gonna have that little bit of information, then if their baby is breech at term, they're not going to be bamboozled at term when they have less options and they're already 37 weeks and they're like, oh, C-section is there. Oh, okay. They're not going to be manipulated like that. They're going to be understanding the risks and the benefits a bit better of all of their three options if their baby doesn't turn head down. Um, so there's a really big focus on what I'm doing in telling ourselves the truth so we can tell our clients the truth. When we start going to look at evidence versus policy, it's just like, it's at this point for me, it feels like it's never ending when I'm finding out that I didn't know when I was practicing. That's not fair. Okay, it's not fair, but who is it not fair for? It's not fair for the client. No, it's her body. She is going to have to live with the consequences, positive or negative, of what we are telling her to do. And breech birth is something that I have put my nose in a lot. I have attended. So 3 years ago, before I left, apparently I was neck and neck with, what's his name, Andrew Kotaska, who has written the SOTC guidelines. When it comes to the amount of vaginal breech births that we've attended, I was almost at par with him. But the other thing that I have, that I think he's got an epidemiology background. He's really good at looking at things and evidence, a lot better than me. But I have also reviewed a lot of vaginal breech births in an institution that I was working at. We were looking at a decade worth of vaginal breech births that have happened in that institution. And I do feel very confident in talking about the choices that women have and what makes it safe. So I'm going to be stepping into that and creating, I think, a section for clients and a section for clinicians. We'll see. We'll see how it all pans out. Another thing that's really important really important is empowering parents and speaking about the reproductive health, which means all health, with our children. I see a lot of fear, like a struggle in parents and how to discuss things with their children. And it starts when they're newborns, when we're wiping their bums, um, when we're doing diaper changes and the terminologies that we use, the anatomy terms that we're using. Um, it all starts from there, for our boys and our girls, and talking about birth, talking where we come from, talking about puberty, relating. Um, so again, I don't want you to wait for my projects. They might be like a book series. We'll see. Um, the example that I keep giving to people is like teaching your kids where belly button comes from, because that comes from having the being attached to the cord and attached to placenta, and you can like discuss like all the stem cells um, that exist in the placenta and what they're born with, and what they were like when they were inside mama, how they were head down, because most of them are head down. If they were born for the poo, that's fun too. And the reason why is because a lot of women are like, well, my baby would have died because my baby was born like with meconium. It's like, no, like that woman doesn't even understand what happened at her birth. That her baby was mature and was ready to come out and was doing the things that are normal for babies to do. And what is abnormal is having babies be born too early, not past their due date, or not full of meconium. Women really don't understand what's happening to their bodies. They have a lack of education. Um, so when it comes to empowering the parent, don't wait for my projects. Start now. I've been following them on Instagram, and what I see on the Instagram, I believe there's a lot of value to it. I haven't followed their podcast or anything, so I haven't done a deep dive. But it's called the Institute of Child Psychology. And so far, what I see, I like it. So you can go look at that. Another thing is we need to push for more data. So before there was a little bit of data a few months ago, we were blaming the increase in MMR on women who were obese and women who are older, having more babies. But that didn't spike in 2022, so it doesn't make any sense, right? And not a lot of people have the background and the seeing that I have, right? Because I'm a self-exiled midwife. And so it's not okay to not speak. It's not okay to not say the truth. And then now we looked at data and we see that the biggest increase was in young women because of lockdowns, the effects of lockdowns on those young women. And those women are only starting to have babies. In 10 years, they're going to be having a lot more babies. So this increase that we are seeing is going to continue increasing potentially. But that's only if we continue doing what we're doing. Another project that I will be doing is I'm going to be listening to women who are having unassisted births. I want to know. So in the system, we tell each other, oh, those women are irrational. They have PTSD. They can't make decisions for themselves. Oh, they're so bad. Okay. A bad woman, we've already heard. We've already heard that. Okay. Let's move on. We're 2026 now. Um, I want to hear their stories because I don't believe in a system and what we say about women. So I have already started my interviews. What we are saying about women so far is not true. We'll see after I have more interviews. But so far it's not true. And if you're part of the witch hunt of the people who go and help these women have unassisted births, One of the very hard rules for me is that you're not going to tell me who was at your birth if there was someone at your birth that was supporting you. If there was someone, I'd love to know what she was doing, but don't tell me who she is. And then the witch hunt can come through me. Um, I was talking to my clients and they're believers, they're Christian. And I was talking to them about how I feel there's so much corruption in the world. I can't understand how much there is. We're When we look at evidence versus policy, there's a lot of harm happening. When we look at the data, there's a lot of harm happening. And giving ourselves the excuse when we have the skills to help, excuses, I'm going to wait on the SOGC. Oh, they're going to do it for me. No. And we've already been waiting for 3 years. And then look at the statements that they came out, they lied. And there's a quote in the Bible that I disagree with. The quote is, the creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed. This quote means that we are waiting for good people to do good things and to fight evil. The reason there's so much corruption in the world is because we're all watching and waiting. It's ego. We don't want to do it. Whatever excuse we're saying to ourselves, like, can we move past that? There are people that are actually dying for no reason in the high income country of Canada at a childbearing age. They're the healthiest people, they're pregnant. That's the tip of the iceberg. Everyone else who's underneath that, that means that there's illness increasing. It means everything else underneath the iceberg, underneath the water, is increasing. We have the tools. We went to school for this. It's our job. When it comes to the unassisted births, I have a very clear message to the people who are on a witch hunt. If we have the skills to help, why aren't we using it for that? Why aren't we asking ourselves these two questions? Why these women don't want to be in our care, and why, um, and how can we increase safety for these women who are choosing not to have us at their birth or in their care at all? Because that's what our skills are good for, right? Supposed to be able to create safety and education for women to make the best decisions for themselves and to have the best resources and tools for themselves. The question really is for me, like, why don't they want us at our births? And so far, what I have found out that I can say clearly is that they don't feel that they're getting informed choice from midwives. Um, they don't see a difference between doctors and midwives anymore. We're the same thing. That's not fair, because when midwifery started in 93, the whole thing was about informed choice. And there's a really big reason why that happened. And now it's restarting again. The people who want choice are being seen as extreme. Before 93, it seemed really extreme to have a home birth, even with a midwife who had the skills to, have the equipment and do it unlegislated. It seemed extreme. And when you showed up at a hospital, the doctor could turn a blind eye, turn their back to you, and not care for you. So we're doing the same thing. Why? Why can't we go help? If the regulatory body really believes that they're creating safety in the public, what's their slogan again? Protecting the public. Ask yourself what protecting the public really means. And another project that's not related to MMR or women necessarily, but it's like keep. I'm like I told myself I wasn't gonna do it, but it just keeps happening. It's just like on my plate. It's just like the universe just like is to have the same sort of course that I am about to launch on birth, but to do it on death. Because with MAID, euthanasia in Canada is legal and it's called MAID. And it's taking on some extremes that, a lot of people are concerned about. And I really, really do see that if we were to educate people around death, like we educate people around birth, because birth is scary, but death is even scarier. Um, if we were to educate people in how to support someone who is dying, if we were to educate someone who is at an older age or has an illness, about what death can mean, what it can look like, what the options are, all the comfort measures, like we do for birth. Um, we start off with definitions and then we go into what does it look like, all the comfort measures, and then all the interventions potentially that we could do for that, which would include euthanasia. Then we could have like a special cases scenario after that. And then after that, we could talk about grief and how we help ourselves in grief. And if you're a person who's dying and you want to help your family, what can you set up for them? All those things would help in creating confidence so that you can make the best decisions for yourself, as long as the information is unbiased. And right now, it's really hard to find unbiased information. You know, as midwives, we don't tell clients that the newborn screening is kept indefinitely in Ontario. Apparently, in Manitoba, it's for up to 2 years, but in Ontario, it's indefinitely. Um, and that means because the testing started in 19 years ago, that it's up to, they say 19 years, and next year it's going to be 20. And in most provinces and in most states, it's kept indefinitely. Why aren't we telling our clients that when we are doing informed choice? It's not an informed choice if we're not telling what's happening to their baby's genetic data. Um, yeah. So those are my, potential projects. Everything is up in the air, except for the one on like prenatal classes. If you are a clinician and you choose to do my prenatal class, um, just be ready that evidence does conflict with our policy. It will make you consider to change your practice. Um, and clients have a right to know where the evidence lies. They have a right to feel into their intuition, after they have proper knowledge, unbiased. I'm doing my best to keep it unbiased, and if you think about it, if I think about what I would want for my birth, I wouldn't even know, because I don't have that experience. I just have the experience of supporting people and providing information, and so I don't have a bias for the epidural or against it, et cetera, et cetera. So it that's a really powerful place to offer choice and information from. When we hear women who've already had births, they have a bias towards something depending on what they hated from their birth or what they really love from their birth. And I don't have that. Um, so those are just the initial things we can do to decrease the adverse outcomes that we're seeing. And it's based on the solution from individual to individual. So if you decide to continue practicing, what is it that you can do, right? Changing your practice is definitely one of them. Opening up our blindfolds right? We have to do that, not delegating it to a system that does nothing and blames it on not having data. It's bananas what they're saying. Um, and if you're a consumer, um, my recommendation would be to inform yourself because, and not because I'm creating a course, but because when we look at the evidence of how women feel after birth, 85% of people in Australia in a really big study showed that they would do something different. So that means that 85% of women were unsatisfied with the outcomes and the care that they got while they were pregnant and at birth. When we look at those mom groups on Facebook and things like that, we see so many women, they've had 3 babies. And they're like, guys, like, do your education. I would go back and do things, everything differently. Um, and I feel that's sad. I know that it's scary to tell women risks and benefits, but there's a way of talking about risks and benefits to them, reminding them how small risks and benefits are, um, and putting it in categories of like what's common, uncommon, rare, and very rare. So then the women can start focusing on reducing the risks that are common and uncommon rather than the rare and very rare ones. Um, and that there's prevention tools for those ones. Um, there's a way of explaining all of that to women. It doesn't have to be scary. And I know that my podcast is for the decrease in MMR, but in the end, it's going to decrease everything that's underneath that iceberg. And I don't promote my podcast to women that are pregnant, um, at least not these episodes. So, um, yeah, there's a way to do it. Um, and there's no reason for us not to use our skills. We're powerful. We do not need to wait on good people. Where are the good people? Where are they? Oh, right there. Right there. Oh, you know? Like, why are we waiting? And it doesn't have to feel big. Doesn't have to feel big. It can feel usual. You feel like, oh, I just want to help. That's an everyday thing, wanting to help. So if you have your own ways of reducing morbidity, intervention, and all of that, telling people the truth better. If there are things that I don't know about the evidence, I like it honestly really want to know. Um, and if you're giving yourself excuses on reasons why you don't want to help, can't help yourself and other people, I want to know because I want to unbamboozle you. I want to remove all the things that you're telling yourself, all the excuses, all the lies that you might be telling yourself that you can't help. Especially if you're a clinician, and especially if you're childbearing aged, and especially if you're human. I want to know. Yeah, I'll ponder it. I'll come up with like, nah, there's always a reason to help. And I also do want to say that helping the environment in a very like looking at all the information rather than one way. ha- Um, when we help, when we choose, if our heart wants to do something for the environment, that is helping in decreasing MMR because our environment really does affect us. Reducing the toxins around us really does affect our health. Um, so, what's important to you? if if the environment is like the thing for you, you're unlikely going to be a clinician, more likely going to be a forester, and so like all of those things matter. all matter. We don't need to, the point is we don't need to wait for people to do good. But I do really want people to look at all the nuance. If things seem very black and white for you, you probably haven't looked at the evidence, the full spectrum of evidence. So I really hope that I'll do this. Like our culture tells us that one thing is right. We need to do this and turn our heads around, look behind us, full spectrum is important. Okay, see you in the next podcast.